Welcome back, everyone. Marvel and Sony just announced a new Spider-Man multiverse movie, so I'll explain what's going on and why it's such a big deal after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home and the path they took to live-action Spider-Verse multiverse crossover with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's still a lot of Spider-Man related stuff happening this year in the movies, between the Morbius movie with all those Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland, Spider-Man Easter eggs and crossover, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. But recently, you probably saw Sony announcing the new Madam Web Spider-Man movie with Dakota Johnson. She's not somebody I would have expected when we started hearing rumors about the movie last year. There are a couple versions of the character, but most of you are probably familiar with the one from Spider-Man the Animated Series from the 90s or from Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions.
Way to go, boss!
You did well, Spider-Man. I am proud of you. The others can go home, but there is one more place that you must visit.
Where to now? I think she means my reality. What am I gonna find there?
More than you can ever imagine.
I don't believe what you're telling me. In your reality, I'm a character in fiction? Yep, and I'm an actor who plays you on TV.
If you don't remember that episode, it probably has my favorite Stan Lee cameo of all time, because he literally finds out that he's a fictional character inside a TV show, inside a story, the larger Spider-Man comics, and goes to visit the real version of Stan Lee at Marvel Comics. That would be like Tom Holland Spider-Man finding out that he's a fictional character and then going to meet the real Kevin Feige inside Marvel Studios offices.
Spider-Man, it's time to go.
Who is that exotic lady?
Oh, her? Now, she's my ride.
I wonder how I'm supposed to get down from here.
In fun fact, that version of Madam Web was actually voiced by Stan Lee's wife in real life. I can still hear the theme song from that TV show in my head. But during the events of those series' subsequent games, Madam Web acts as sort of a guardian of the multiverse or the Spider-Verse with powers over reality similar to the Beyonder. She tests different versions of Spider-Man to find a team that's capable of stopping multiverse villains. In the Spider-Verse comics, it's more about the different versions of Spider-Man from across the multiverse stopping the Inheritors. The TV show version of that plot was a little bit simpler, with them all teaming up to stop a version of Carnage. Recently, during Spider-Man No Way Home, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of Spider-Man just came back because of Doctor Strange's spell gone wrong. The spell was only meant to change reality for the main MCU universe, but because of the way the spell worked, relying on aspects of reality that Doctor Strange didn't fully understand yet, that's going to happen during Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. When Spider-Man messed the spell up, the effects of the spell bled into the whole of reality, everything in existence across the multiverse, pulling in anyone to the main MCU universe who knew a version of Peter Parker was Spider-Man. And that's how Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield wound up in the MCU along with their villains. Because both Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker knew that they were also Spider-Man. The reason why a billion different versions of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, didn't show up was because Doctor Strange contained the spell initially. They started to pay that off though at the end when reality started to tear and you saw many characters showing up like they're all coming, I can't stop it. They overwrote that first spell with the second one, which had the effect of sending all those characters back to where they came from. It was sort of like a flex tape patch on reality. Recently, you also probably saw the interviews where Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield both said that they would love to come back as their versions of Spider-Man in future movies. Tobey Maguire specifically said that his plot in the movie in No Way Home left the door open for more stories in the future.
Revisiting, what was part of my history and getting a chance to like come together and a way to revisit and just to get back into that. And I don't want to say like close the chapter, but revisit and have certain resolutions and just join in this like loving creative spirit.
That's one of the reasons why he asked the No Way Home writers not to go too deep into his backstory after the events of Spider-Man 3 so that they could save that story for future movies. But after No Way Home, after the events of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Marvel and Sony kind of need a new way to cross over between universes. And during No Way Home, Doctor Strange was already hardcore against messing with the multiverse with reality before everything went off the rails in the film. You have to imagine that after Doctor Strange 2, when the multiverse goes even crazier, that he'll be even more against doing something similar. And you also have to remember that all the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man crossovers were only accidents. He didn't bring them to the MCU on purpose. In fact, he was trying to prevent stuff like that from happening. So Marvel and Sony just need another easy way for characters to cross over between universes in a way that won't break reality and make Doctor Strange really pissed off. The easy solution that they have to this problem in the animated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie is Spider-Man 2099's WebWare wristwatches that allow each of them to travel the web of life and destiny at will. That's also right out of the comics too. That's the way they use in the Spider-Verse comics for all them all to cross over without breaking all of reality. If you're not familiar with those comics or the Web of Life and Destiny, that's just another way for versions of Spider-Man to perceive the multiverse, just because of their innate abilities. But it's the same thing we saw with all the multiverse travel in Spider-Man No Way Home. It's just using different tools for traveling between universes. In the announcement that Sony and Marvel made about the Madam Web movie, they mentioned the original comic book version, saying that because she was so different in the comics, they are going to do something a little bit different with the character. Like doing a younger version of her. Dakota Johnson obviously looks much younger than the old version of Madam Web that most people remember from Spider-Man the Animated Series. And if you never read those original Madam Web comic books, in the comics, she didn't have control over reality. She couldn't travel the multiverse at will. She was just more of a supernatural, Doctor Strange type of version of Spider-Man. It was more of a supernatural spin on Spider-Man's abilities, like she had clairvoyance and prescience instead of the traditional Spidey sense. She had astral projection, telepathy. Sony and Marvel are saying that they'll be changing some of those things, and it makes it sound like they're going to do more of a Spider-Verse, Shattered Dimensions character evolution for her character. Like, they're rolling hard on multiverse crossovers now in the future after Spider-Man No Way Home, so they need a couple characters that can do that. My expectation right now is that they'll just evolve her character the same way they evolved the Venom character in his movies. They'll start with a basic origin story using a bunch of Spider-Man Easter eggs and references, then eventually work up to full-blown multiverse crossover with versions of Spider-Man in these other Sony Spider-Verse, Venomverse characters. The Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene with Venom is a good example of that, just teasing a bigger storyline for the multiverse in the movies. Even though he was only in the movie for a brief hot second and left a piece of the symbiote behind, you get the idea. They did a big multiverse Spider-Verse crossover with all the characters. Because Sony's going to be the one making this Madam Web movie, my assumption initially is that early on she'll mostly be crossing over with the other Sonyverse, Venomverse characters. And now that they've opened the door to Spider-Man variants, different versions of Peter Parker with more on the way, there'll be more versions of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman showing up eventually. They have a bunch of movies planned. Sony now has their pick of the litter in terms of which version of Spider-Man that they start referencing in some of these movies, so it doesn't always have to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. That was one of the things he's been talking about when he's been talking about his future as Spider-Man in the MCU movies.
Would you do it again? Would you put the suit on if given the opportunity?
I mean, never say never. I mean, it's a character that's always gonna be so meaningful to me and so beautiful to me. And again, it comes back to service, I think if there's a way, because that's what that character is all about. He's all about serving the greater good and serving his fellow people, his fellow, serving humanity and all life, So if there's a way for me to continue to add to the legacy of that character in a way that feels like it's of service to an audience, of service to the themes, the themes that Stan Lee kind of, injected that character with, I'm open, of course. I'm very, very open.
The Morbius movie is a good example of this. Lots of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, lots of Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and Tom Holland Spider-Man Easter eggs. Like, literally somebody at Sony said, hey, which version of Spider-Man should we reference? And everybody turned around and just said yes. Like, maximum Spider-Man Easter eggs. Just put every Spider-Man Easter egg you've ever heard of in this movie. So we will start seeing more actual Spider-Man stuff going on in all these Sony spin-off movies. Let me know in the comments, though, which versions of Spider-Man do you want to see in which of these movies? And I'll do more videos about the other Sinister 6 spin-off movies that they're currently making when we get more details about those. The Kraven movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson, MCU Quicksilver, is the next big one. I cannot wait for all the memes when that shows up. There was a version of Kraven that showed up in the Tears of Reality during the ending for Spider-Man No Way Home, so they were kind of teasing the future of the larger Spider-Man spin-off movies, like we're going to be doing versions of all these different Sinister 6 multiverse characters that you're seeing show up here sooner than you think. I explained who all those blue figures were in my full Spider-Man No Way Home breakdown video, so I'll add a link for that in the description if you want to learn more about them. And we will be getting more Morbius trailer videos with more Spider-Man Easter eggs soon. It'll be fun to see where they try to take that movie. And yes, I do think that Morbius will eventually cross over with MCU Blade.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
Everyone click here for my new Morbius video with all the Andrew Garfield Easter eggs and connections, and click here for my new Marvel Doctor Strange 2 Iron Man video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.